Greetings, everyone. Greetings from southern Pennsylvania. I'm on my way back from two different engagements. I was in Montreal for a national congress on the humanities in Canada. Before that, I was in upstate New York in Skaneateles, working with the NYS CIO group of academic CIOs across New York State and elsewhere. But what I wanted to do today was just give you a little glimpse into my current book project. I started writing Peak Higher Education. It's under contract with Johns Hopkins University Press. And I wanted to let you know just how I came up with the idea behind it all. So starting in the early 2000s, I was working on emerging technology for small colleges. I was working with a nonprofit that connected with initially about 100 and then up to 200 small colleges and universities, mostly liberal arts, across the United States. And I found that I was doing more and more research into economics and into institutional structures in order to better understand how campuses made use of or didn't make use of emerging technologies. So that just grew in my work, and as I became a futurist, economics and institutional policies became central to my work. And I started looking at this from a kind of grim and anxious perspective starting in 2008 with the Great Recession. It's not something that we talk about very much anymore, but I think this did a number on institutional finances across the country. Well, a few years later, 2012, 2013, I started noticing that for the first time in a generation, total enrollment in American colleges and universities had ticked down. Not by much, but for the first time, that trend of growth had refused. It had gone backwards. And I had on the one hand, I had a lot of intellectual connections with this. I started thinking about how this may reflect anxiety about student loans. It may reflect increasing dissatisfaction with American higher education, partly for cultural, partly for political reasons. It might reflect changes in other dynamics, such as state support. But also, as a futurist, it gave me just this shuddering sense of an epiphany. My good friend Howard Rheingold refers to this as his spidey sense tingling. And I felt that there was something going on, that this was a seed of a future that was especially potent. I couldn't shake it, so I quickly blogged about it and said, all right, what if this is a turning point? What if the generation of growth, the decades of expanding enrollment in American higher education, what if that trend just stopped and reversed? What does this mean? What might this look like in 5, 10, 15 years? And so I researched it a bit at the time, dug into it, blogged about it. I blog about things in order to get the word out, in order to stake a claim for a comment, or just stake a position for a claim I'm making, but also to get feedback, and which is really, really important for how I work. And I got some feedback and honed this idea a bit, and it grew. It turned into a chapter in my first Johns Hopkins book, Academia Next. It became several articles in places like Inside Higher Ed. And the idea kind of went out there in the world. I heard a Chronicle of Higher Education speaker refer to peak higher education in passing last year. But at the time when I came up with this, 2012, 2013, it was a futures idea. It was a hypothetical, a scenario for where higher education might be headed. And I didn't position it as an absolute certainty. I didn't describe it as something that was guaranteed to happen. I put this out there as a scenario, a model, a hypothesis, one way higher education could unfold. And as the next 11 years went by, unfortunately, the world conformed to this scenario. Total enrollment in American higher education went down every year, every semester until 2012, often by small amounts, 1%, 2%. But the trend line was pretty clear. And then with the pandemic, enrollment dropped much more steeply, 4 or 5%. And this continued until the fall of 2023, when for the first time this new trend itself reversed. And we saw a slight increase of 1% or so. So this is the story of a model that came true, a scenario that we lived with. And ever since then, I've been sharing this with different audiences, testing it out, getting feedback, getting pushback, thinking about ways it might unfold. And now my current book, it begins by summarizing this past decade and trying to explain why enrollment went down, and then looking ahead to see how this might play out in the future. Will we continue to see a shrinkage of higher education in the United States, or will it plateau? How do we respond to this? Well, that's where I've been thinking. Hope you enjoyed this small insight into a small bit of futures work. Hope you're all well. Please leave comments in the chat. Would love to hear from you.